Hi, my name is Amy French, and I'll be talking about flipped classrooms. Flipped classroom is a type of blended learning where students are introduced to content at home and practice working through it at school. It's different than traditional learning, where in traditional learning, students are lectured or presented content at school and then they work on homework activities at home. In a flipped classroom, lectures or content is presented online or on a digital device, and then the activities are then performed in the classroom the next day. There are many benefits to a flipped classroom. It allows students to learn at their own pace and puts them in a more active role. Also, recordings are material that is provided to the students, can serve as future study materials for future assessments. And I can attest to this as a mother of two teenage daughters, one of whom just watched a math video that her teacher presented in order to study for the math quiz later today. It also allows for continuous teacher improvement. I know watching myself lecture or watching myself present, I can see where I need to improve my teaching styles or um, teaching techniques to better improve my teaching for my students. Research also shows that 71% of teachers reported an improvement in students' grades in a flipped classroom. And while this research is still new, it provides some encouraging information for people who are interested. Project-based learning and the flipped classroom go hand in hand. During this project-based learning, it is your job to guide students. Because learning is set at students' own pace, students think they have all the time in the world to work on a project. But as a teacher, you need to set clear expectations and deadlines, providing feedback along the way. Once projects are completed, they could be shared, uploaded, read, or even performed. Examples could include research projects presented using Google Slides or speeches recorded with Screencastify. I've done this with my own classroom just recently. They presented their research projects in a Zoom presentation where they presented to 5 different classmates and to myself, and it was very successful. There are some challenges to a flipped classroom, but none that can't be overcome. A couple of them is it is time consuming to make instructional videos, but a benefit to that is once you find that instructional video to be effective, it could be used again. So say for instance, I made one this year for my 7th graders. Next year, if I find out it's effective, I can use it for next year's students. We have to rely on all students having access to technology, and so that could be a hurdle to overcome, is making sure every student has access. The pre-class workload can be overwhelming for some students because they're so used to the traditional classroom where we feed them the information and then they make use of it. In the flipped classroom, it's an upside down model, and so some of that pre-class workload can be overwhelming. And also, if the pre-class work is underdeveloped or ineffective, it could be disengaging for students. And examples could be long and confusing videos, getting students to work their ways through that. There are several ideas on how to flip a classroom. The first, as I've mentioned before, is to determine that all students have access to technology. Because flipping classrooms is such a big paradigm shift, communicating this with parents is essential as well. Creating videos and content and encouraging students' participation and holding them accountable for it. There are a few easy ways to get started. If you're wanting to dip your toe in the flipped classroom model, here's a few methods to start with. Starting small by incorporating online learning platforms like Google Classroom. I know that sets teachers up for success by giving you a way to present online content to your students. There's several online assessment tools, and one of which is quizzes. Quizzes can be used as an assignment for homework, and I've used it myself during this distance learning thing. So they have another way, you have another way, and students have another way to assess themselves. And if a concept needs some front loading, if you feel like you don't have enough time during class to introduce something, you can absolutely use the opportunity to record a video of yourself teaching the concept to students to prep them further. Obviously, this is huge undertaking, and I would absolutely appreciate any feedback you have for me. So if you wouldn't mind clicking this link to leave some, I'd appreciate it. Thank you so